Hi, and welcome to Veggie Bites, the show where you will learn how to cook delicious and hearty vegetarian meals that all of your friends will enjoy. This is my friend Emily, and she's joining us today for our Indian episode. Last episode, I took you to London, the place where both of us studied abroad, and today I'm staying in London, and we're going to be cooking Indian food, which is definitely a British staple. See you in a minute. Welcome back. So, as I said before, today joining me is my friend Emily. We both studied abroad in London together, and we both enjoyed Indian food there a lot. Indian food's a really big staple in London especially, and I think chicken tikka masala is actually like the most popular food in London, more so than fish and chips or anything else. So, like curries and things like that are a really big part of our food diets when we were there. So today the first thing we're going to be making is curry. But before that, we put rice on the stove.
And we use basmati rice, which is what you'll normally see in South Asian dishes, and it has a very distinct smell. You can sort of it's a longer grain rice, and you're definitely going to want to use that when you're making curry because it's not really going to taste the same if you're using just plain white rice. We put that on the stove with 2 cups of water, some butter, and then about a 1/4 cup of coconut milk, and we can smell it already. It smells really good.
Basmati rice is just so fragrant, and as you'll see in a minute, the curry has a lot of spices in it, and it'll get really kind of spicy and really flavorful. So the basmati rice is a really nice balance to that. And the butter is important because you don't want your rice to toast when it's in a pot or a pan or whatever it is, and the butter will sort of act as a defense between the rice and the bottom of the pan. So it's important to add butter. Usually in Indian dishes you can add clarified butter instead of butter, or you could use clarified butter even instead of the coconut milk, but I kind of like the smell of that. Okay, so our basmati rice is on the stove and our water is starting to boil for our curry. So let's talk about the spices, the most important part of the curry.
A lot of people don't realize that curry isn't just one spice. It's actually just a mix of a bunch of different ones, and they all have very distinct flavors. And we're going to put in ours cinnamon, which you wouldn't normally think of with spicy necessarily because it does tend to be with sweet stuff a lot. Black pepper, cardamom, which Melissa keeps it in a plastic bag in her pantry because it has a very, very, very strong smell. Like, you don't even need to open the bottle to be able to smell it. You can pretty much smell it from anywhere. Mustard, which also gives it some nice color, and then coriander, and all of those things will go in along with what Mel has in front of her.
Yeah, and the cardamom is definitely one of the most distinct smells and taste of the curry, and it's really important, but you only need a little bit of it, as we'll talk about later. But if you're going to go ahead and invest an entire bottle of cardamom, which is great. Also, we were talking about before, if you want to make your own chai tea and things like that, put it in a plastic bag, save yourself, because last semester I didn't, and every time I'd open up my cabinet, everything smelled like cardamom, and I like the smell of cardamom, but that definitely wasn't
you don't want it on everything.
So, speaking of investing in spices can be pretty expensive.
Yeah, I just went to Whole Foods, and even though I bought the house brand, which we have here from the organic pepper, it got kind of expensive just buying pretty basic spices, but little did I know that you can buy very, very cheap spices from other places in DC.
Yeah, so as you can see, we're in a new location for Veggie Bites, and this is the apartment that I live in with 2 other girls. I'm sure they'll make an appearance sometime, whether they're toasting a bagel or something, as one of my roommates was before. But I was in World Market, which is in Friendship Heights for those of you who live in DC, who go to AU. And I was walking around looking for different stuff to buy for our apartment, decorations and stuff. And I always knew they had this huge food section in World Market, but I never knew about their spice collection. And so as Emily pointed out before, we have this coriander. And so I bought this container and the spice itself at World Market. This entire packet of spice, which equals to this amount, a jar of this large, was 99 cents. So if I had bought it somewhere else, it would have probably been, and this is for cumin, it probably would have been $4 or $5, depending on where I got it. So if you can, get to a World Market or get to a place where some places don't sell spices by the jar or the canister anymore. They sell them by weight, and that's how things used to be done before these things started being jarred. Or if you want to buy them whole, if you want to buy a cardamom pod, or we could have used fennel seeds for this and then grind it yourself. Those are just cheaper alternatives, because I feel people are really discouraged from making curries because they think it's expensive and it's an investment, but all you have to do is buy, like 4.99 packs of this stuff, and you can make a really basic curry for $4 for the spices.
And it's not like they're gonna go bad or anything. Like, you can keep them for as long as if you only make curry like once every few months, that's like you're only gonna need to buy it one time, so it's worth it.
Yeah, so, and like speaking of curries and spices, so there's a lot of different kinds of curries out there. There's Thai curries and Vietnamese, and then there's other kinds of curries, like an Indian curry that we're going to be making today. So if you were going to make a Thai curry, you might want to use like lavender or lemongrass and things like that. But the really basic ingredients of a curry are what we have here, except for chili and like chili powder and those sorts of things. And if you want to go into like Thai and Vietnamese and those sorts of curries, you would actually probably add the pepper in itself and not the powder, depending on how you wanted to make it. But I wanted to make a really basic, really mild curry because I know me personally, I know Emily likes a lot of spice. I don't like that much spice. So for me, when I tried my first curry, I wanted to be mild. So this is like very mild, very basic. If you want to learn how to make curry, you should definitely try this out. So, okay, so with spices, you have several options. So you could buy yourself a curry pack, and on the pack, it'll have a level, probably like mild to medium. My roommate Tina, when we were at World's Market, she like stocked up on like the medium, like spicy curries because she knows that's not what I'm into. And that for her, for the one packet of curry spice is 99 cents. So you could go that route also. Or you could buy your own. So as I said before, I went to World Market. I picked up these packets, which are reclosable, which is awesome. But I also bought these cool little glass jars to put spices in. You could do other things with them after you've finished with the spice. So these were, I think, $2. So for $3, I have all this stuff. So, all right, so we're gonna fill our little jars as we've done already with the coriander. So this is turmeric, which just provides the most beautiful yellow color, but you have to be careful with it when you're handling it because it could stain your hands yellow, definitely. So I'm not wearing gloves right now, so I'm just gonna be as careful as I can and just open it. And it has like this sort of like really like earthy smell. And it's kind of like a muted smell, and that's why we have things like cardamom and the cumin and the coriander in this. This and the mustard are probably the most muted smells, but both of them to give it this like beautiful yellow color that you think of when you think of some curries.
And this is
Cumin.
This is the cumin, which has a way more distinct smell,
Yeah.
and it's definitely kind of spicy, and it kind of like tickles your nose a little bit when you drink it, when you smell it. So we're just gonna go ahead and make sort of this homemade funnel.
All right. Well, I was testing out this curry recipe a week or so ago, and my roommate Rebecca saw me like struggling really hard to get the coriander, and I had also bought some other spices, and she saw me struggling really hard to get everything in, so she's like, why don't you just make a funnel? So just get any piece of paper and roll it up, and you could stick it into the jar, and then just go ahead and pour it in. And just so you know, like this, for example, this jar that I bought won't even fit this entire bag. Like this bag will fit into a bigger jar like what we have the cardamom in. But like what I did with the coriander is I didn't fill it up all the way because you definitely want to leave some room for like the spice to breathe, I guess you could say. And also for when you're pouring it out, you don't want it to be like all stuck and like glued together. You want to give it, yeah, exactly. So you just want to like pour it in, and it's very easy with the funnel. And you could see like this looks like it's something like an art student would have and not someone interested in cooking would have, because it's just such a beautiful color. And it's just like earth, I think.
So much easier with the funnel.
I know. All right, so the turmeric is in, and I'm trying to be very careful not to touch it because I don't want to stain my hands yellow. All right. And then what came with this is this little like plastic top, because especially when you're using spices such as these, maybe except for the mustard and like the black, maybe except for just the mustard, you can't go overboard. So it's definitely important if you're going to go ahead and buy one of these jars to make sure it has one of these caps on it, because otherwise you could ruin your entire dish by pouring too much in. So I'm just going to press this cap on.
Excuse me.
You have yours. Okay. And all right, so now we have our own little spice. And what I did with the coriander, I just took like a fine tip permanent marker and wrote coriander on it so I knew what it was, because the coriander and cumin kind of look similar. So we'll probably do that over the break. And all right, so we have our basmati rice on the stove. And that takes about 20 minutes. That's probably going to be ready pretty soon. And right now we just got some water boiling, and that's for the start of our curry, which we're going to make in the next segment. So see you in a minute.